Hi, everyone. Lisa Haven here. Well, Anthony Fauci is in really big trouble. You see, Johns Hopkins University, the one that Fauci has been relying on for some of his COVID-19 information, well, one of their professors has just come out against Anthony Fauci. Not only that, but Judicial Watch put another strike, if you will, over Anthony Fauci's head and have just revealed that they have obtained information via the Freedom of Information Request Act on emails between Fauci, the World Health Organization, and China. And you won't believe the information that was withheld in the very beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. I've got so much information to show you guys. But before I do, as a reminder, get to Restricted Republic. One day we're going to be off air, and these are the only platforms that are going to be left. And right now, you can sign up on the monthly subscription plan for $1. Just use the code DOLLAR when signing up. So get on over to restrictedrepublic.com and check out some of the amazing video content that I have on there. I also publish the YouTube videos there without commercials, just so you know. All right, so let's dive in first to the Johns Hopkins report. Take a look at this article on dailymail.co.uk. Johns Hopkins professor hits out at Dr. Fauci for denying the U.S. is approaching herd immunity and says it's not healthy for a small group of people to be making decisions for America. And I agree. Anthony Fauci and his little gang of few shouldn't be making all the calls for everything, but yet that's kind of what's happening. But the article goes on to say that Dr. Marty McCary said on Thursday that it's not healthy for a small group of people to be making all health decisions for Americans. He then slammed Fauci's track record throughout the pandemic and for initially missing the mark on how the virus is transmitted and effectiveness of masks. He also explained why he believed that Americans have already started to reach herd immunity. Earlier in the month, researchers said that about 38% of Californians had antibodies against the COVID, with 45% of people in LA. Then it goes on to say that he said that Fauci telling people that 75% to 80% of the population needs to get vaccinated neglects the percentages of people who have natural immunity. Now, this is a very big story because I know Fauci has relied some on the information that has come out on Johns Hopkins, and now it seems we have this feud between one of the professors there and Anthony Fauci. Lots of interesting things going on with that, but that's not the only bombshell that has been dropped. Take a look at this article here on gatewaypundit.com. Judicial Watch obtains emails showing Fauci's National Institute of Health accommodated China's terms for confidentiality surrounding COVID-19 in February of 2020. Remember, this was a very critical time for the United States of America because we really needed to know what was happening in China, because China, as always, doesn't really give us the right information. They never really have. But let's go to the actual horse's mouth on judicialwatch.org. Judicial Watch, and this was published March 1st, so very recently. New emails detail World Health Organization and National Institute of Health, that is Fauci's area there, accommodates China's confidentiality terms. Now, the article goes on to state, Judicial Watch announced today that it and the Daily Caller News Foundation received 301 pages of emails and other records of Anthony Fauci and Clifford Lane from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, showing that NIH officials tailored confidentiality forms to China's terms that the World Health Organization conducted as unreleased, strictly confidential COVID-19 epidemiological analysis in January 2020. Additionally, the emails reveal an independent journalist in China pointing out the inconsistent COVID numbers in China to the National Institute of Health's Deputy Director for Clinical Research and Special Projects, Cliff Lane. So we have a journalist pointing out the inconsistencies, and we also have these emails that are labeled strictly confidential. But let's get in a little further to what this says. It says the new emails include a conversation about confidentiality forms on February 14th and 15th in 2020 between Lane and the World Health Organization Technical Officer Daniel Han. Now, Han writes, the forms this time are tailored to China's terms, so we cannot use the ones from before. The World Health Organization briefing package sent on February 13th, 2020 to NIH officials traveling to China as part of the COVID response ask that the officials wait to share information until they have an agreement with China. Important, please treat this as sensitive and not public communication until we have agreed communications with China. And remember, this is the start of our pandemic. This is very critical information that many in the United States needed in order to make massive decisions on. But in an email dated January 20th, a World Health Organization official discusses the epidemiological analysis they conducted of COVID-19 earlier that month and states that it is strictly confidential and is only for the Strategic and Technical Advisory Group for Infection Hazards and should not be further disseminated. And it goes on to describe how a Chinese journalist there also pointed out that the number of cases that were reported in the World Health Organization Joint China Missions Report are inconsistent with the numbers reported by the Wuhan Public Health Services. So that's another important point. Then it goes on to state this, and it says, in an email dated February 15th, right, the head of the World Health Organization office in China, informed the joint mission members traveling to China that not all of their activities in China would be arranged by the Chinese Government National Health Commission. Now, the Daily Caller editor-in-chief had this to say about the entire report. These emails set the tone early on in the coronavirus outbreak. It's clear that the World Health Organization allowed China to control the information flow from the True transparency is crucial. And that is according to Ethan Barden, editor-in-chief for the Daily Caller News Foundation. And Tom Fitton goes on to say this. These new emails show World Health Organization and Fauci's NIH special accommodations to Chinese communist efforts to control information about COVID-19. That's some pretty important details. Where we've got this entire, and let me show you all the actual emails. And there you go. You can see all the emails between them that have been dropped. And this is a 301 page document. And you're more than welcome to scan through it if you've got the time. I really encourage you to do so. But a lot of it has been redacted. But he received that via a Freedom of Information Request Act. But it would have been nice to know early on what we were dealing with, but all of that was kept confidential. So that's why I thought this was very important for you guys to know. But meanwhile, we have organizations like Bloomberg, mainstream media sources, saying we should have this kind of planning permanent pandemic, masking and social distancing and all of that. This is a very recent article, March 23rd, 2021. We must start planning for a permanent pandemic with coronavirus mutations pitted against vaccinations in a global arms race. We may never, ever go back to normal. This is the same rhetoric that they have been spouting for a while. And I warned everybody, every time there's a pandemic or a mutation of every sort, restrictions on, restrictions off, restrictions on, restrictions off. And this is exactly what they want to do. The good news is we finally have people starting to stand out against it, from Johns Hopkins University to Judicial Watch, professor there at Johns Hopkins. This is a great breakthrough, at least for the American people, so we don't have to have our freedoms constantly ripped out from underneath us. Now, with that, I just want to tell you guys some great information and news. There is an amazing interview that I did yesterday on Hagmann's report with Steve Quayle and Hagmann. Check it out there. I'll leave a link in the description box below. Also, please check out, I'm going to be at this a conference. This conference is June 11th and 12th. It's a virtual conference, but there's a lot of speakers lined up. I am one of the speakers, but check it out at gen6.com and get information on that. With all of that, please don't forget to check out my partner at preparewithlisa.com. If you guys don't have food storage, please make sure you have it on hand. I personally have food storage on hand for my family, especially in light of everything that we saw with COVID-19. There's nothing in the future that stops something like that from happening again or happening at a worser level. And considering that we're headed into the direction of communism, communism always ends in breadlines. So make sure you and your family are secured with some kind of food. And right now, take advantage of their special offer at preparewithlisa.com. And you can see they've got an amazing discount on the 4-week food supply. You get up to 50% off on that. Anyhow, thanks again for tuning into the channel. I'm Lisa Haven, signing out.